and whilst maintaining a similar movement profile to sprinting. Because if you just do a long run, the force profile of that does not resemble sprinting. So that's why we do it. General preparatory is all non-specific, non-regenerative means. So maybe weight training, cross training, core stability work, rehab, and so on. Regenerative is stuff to help us recover quicker to get up the other four. Yeah. So low intensity body weight stuff or resistance training, self-myofascial release, mobility, flexibility, and so on. Once you've got your philosophy, it's time to look at the competition calendar and how it's all going to fit. Typically, depending on how well or how badly the season went, last year it went crap, so we had a nice long off-season. It's a 5 to 9 week off-season period. You're then in for about 9 weeks in terms of your prep, and then the first league game is at the start of that, and will continue for anywhere between 34 and 38 weeks, depending on how well your season goes. Safe to say, the linear model of periodization does not fit. So your classic 4 blocks of 4 weeks each, hitting one peak, not good, I don't think. Because, like I said, when you hit that peak, what comes after a peak? A trough. Do you want a trough of performance 4 weeks into your season? I don't think so. So, this is your traditional model of prep. You know, you've got this huge preparation period here, a tiny competition period with maybe 3 major competitions, you know, national, international, Olympics. This is what the linear model of periodization is based upon. So you take forever to get up, and then it's just peak, peak, peak. What happens if our preparation period ends here, and then we're going on here? We have to ensure that performance is at a fairly high level 38 weeks of the year. So rather than target high peaks in preparation and readiness, I think what the role of rugby S&C should be is to get up as high as you can by the start of the competition period, and then it's just moderate peaks, moderate troughs, because that ensures that performance is more predictable from week to week. You can have peaks. We use start of the season, Christmas, and playoffs to peak. So what you want is minor fluctuations, maybe a peak here, minor, peak here, minor. So that way your performance is always about this level. You've got a good idea of how you're going to perform.
Yeah. Do you ever try and peak for a specific game, or if you say you suddenly got into the final of the cup, you try and peak for that week special and allow yourself to that?
Yeah. You know, you want to play at your absolute best when you get to a final, but I think in rugby, you know when it's coming, so you can incorporate that into your plan. It's not, you know, something someone will say, right. Oh, by the way, you got a final at the end of the week.
Target specific games, and if you play someone typical at the top of the league, that would be really good to for that game.
I wouldn't, because you want it to be sustainable. It doesn't matter if you beat X team. It matters about, do you beat, you know, everyone 80% of the time. I would say it probably matters more in a playoff situation because you have that one opportunity to make a success of the season. Whereas in a league format, you just have to, you know, do your best at every match.
So even in cup games, right? Do you know what I mean? If you get to win your sevens, you don't try and compete for the final. Or
exactly, yeah. So you're going to account for that in your planning of the year. Yeah. You know, it's blue sky thinking when you're going to go, right, we're going to make the grand final, we're going to make the cup final, and then plan accordingly.
Do you do that when you're looking at your fixtures? You say, right, there's a final on this day, and just presume that you're going to get there, and then...
Yeah, because, you know, you have to have that plan in place, because if you do get in that situation, you can't sort of formulate a plan with 3 weeks to go. If it becomes hugely apparent that, you know, with 3 months to go that you're nowhere near the grand final, you know, that was the story it was last year, maybe you can start to target a peak towards the end of the season. So yeah, that linear model doesn't fit. So you have a couple of other approaches that you can utilise to try and fit into a rugby model. One is vertical integration, which is what Charlie Francis used. So that is keep a thread of all fitness components through your program at the same time. Emphasise some at sometimes, let others go on the back burner, but keep everything at a fairly good level. So that way, you've got everything together come game time. Another approach is the block approach, which is similar but slightly different in that you can almost completely neglect other abilities because their training residuals are so long. Your body will hold on to it for so long you don't even need to train it. And that allows you to use what's called concentrated loading. So elite athletes need a greater amount of stress to adapt, and by focusing on one or two abilities in a block, you can actually ensure that you get adaptation in those elements. If you try and chuck everything at an athlete, you've spent your money, in a way, on too many things, and you don't actually get that adaptation. I try and use something in between. In pre-season, I use a block approach because it doesn't matter that they're weak in weeks 1, 2 and 3. It doesn't matter that we're not training aerobic development as much in weeks 6 and 7. What matters is that everything is at an acceptably high level come the first game of the season. Once we're into the season, then it starts spinning plates. You know, pay attention to this, pay attention to that, change your emphasis. Like I said, small fluctuations in preparation for the majority of the season, it makes performance predictable, because our job is to make performance predictable. It doesn't matter if we know what an athlete's capable of, unless they pull it out of the bag come game time. We have to be predictable and good. Like I said, 3 peaks, season, Christmas and playoffs, assuming we're going to get to the grand final. The block approach follows 3 phases: accumulation, transmutation and realisation. Accumulation is your pyramid. The wider the base of the pyramid, the higher the peak. So this base bit is all the stuff that isn't necessarily going to increase power output, but it's going to lay the foundation and pave the way for other blocks. So aerobic development, hypertrophy if you've got players that need it, anatomical adaptation, so strength and connective tissues, technical skill, movement patterns, stuff like that. After that comes the stuff with shorter training residuals, which is typically the more intense stuff like strength, power output, strength endurance, speed, alactic power. You know, these sort of things, aerobic development and hypertrophy, do they benefit strength and strength endurance? Absolutely. So that lays the foundation. Then you've got on your more intense training things here. Afterwards, you've got to learn to put that into a match-specific context. The guy I mentioned earlier, the Serbian football coach, likens energy capacity in a sport to like a book of matches. You've only got so many matches. Once that match is burnt, it's gone. You've only got a few left. Being a good athlete in part is knowing when to burn your matches. So when to sprint, when to ease off, when to stop, when to walk. And you're going to get the greatest utilisation of all these abilities here if you learn to put them into context. So, match variations. This is where small-sided games might come in. Repeated sprint ability, speed and power endurance, stuff like that. So, starting to put it all together, ready for your first peak. Vertical integration, like I said, is keep a thread of everything at all times. Retention versus developmental load. A retention load is just enough amount of stress for your body to take notice and hold on to what it's got. A developmental load is quite a large amount of stress which really forces the body to adapt. Obviously the biological cost varies between these, so that's sort of where you're spending your money, that is where you're just sort of keeping things ticking over. Same sort of approach to block approach. The focus of one block leads into the focus of the next, and the next, and the next. So each one is superimposed upon the next and benefits the next. I use 4-week blocks, just because it fits into weeks easy. Some are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter. Block 1, primary focus, is either anatomical adaptation,